Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our council meeting for September 29th. I apologize, I was running a little late from a meeting. And I will begin today. Instead of reading the Indigenous Territorial Acknowledgement, I'll read a longer statement with respect to the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. So tomorrow is September 30th, and it's the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. And as well, October 4th is Sisters in Spirit Day, a day to raise awareness about missing and murdered Indigenous women, girls, and Two-Spirit people. The National Day for Truth and Reconciliation honors the children who never returned home and survivors of residential schools, as well as their families and communities. Public commemoration of the tragic and painful history and ongoing impacts of residential schools is a vital component of the reconciliation process. I encourage everyone across Waterloo and Waterloo region to participate in the sunrise ceremonies, the walks, and other activities to honor the children who never returned home and the survivors of residential schools, as well as their families and communities. The City of Waterloo is an active participant in the Reconciliation Action Partnership, which is a collaboration of municipal representatives working together to support Indigenous-centered initiatives across Waterloo region. Its focus is on improving service delivery for Indigenous peoples, building respectful relationships with Indigenous communities, meaningfully supporting Indigenous-led work, and fostering more inclusive communities and municipal workplaces. Each year, a local Indigenous artist's design is chosen by the community, providing opportunities for public education, understanding, and connection. Tomorrow, the Reconciliation Action Partnership and Maddie Bernard Resmer will unveil the new Every Child Matters bus wrap and ambulance wrap. In advance of our own reflections tomorrow, I'd like to share artist Maddie Bernard Resmer's own description of her artwork and what it means. So this is directly from Maddie. The piece I created for this year's Every Child Matters bus and ambulance wraps is titled Kiwa, They Are Returning Home. And I apologize if I mispronounce that, but it means they are returning home. It speaks to what so many children of the residential school system were denied and what so many of us hold as ordinary, which is the ability to come home. Home can be a house, a stretch of land, a country of origin. It can also be a family gathered around a table, the sound of a first language, the taste of traditional food, the comfort of ceremony. For Indigenous children forced into residential schools, both the place and the feeling of home were stolen. Many escaped to find their own ways back, but their steps were intercepted by agents, by police, by hunger, by exhaustion. Too often, the journey proved impossible. In creating this design, I wanted to hold that sorrow while also pointing toward resurgence. The monarch butterfly, with its long and perilous migration, carries the spirit of Indigenous children who fled or survived, and those whose journeys home, in body, in spirit, in memory, are still unfolding. Subtly woven into the orange field of the bus is a textile pattern, a 3-strand braid, a Haudenosaunee sky dome, a Mi'kmaq double curve, a Pacific Northwest Coast Salish flat design, and a Woodland Cree Anishinaabe floral. These motifs speak together as one fabric, symbols of the collective spirit and vast diversity of Indigenous nations across Turtle Island and within this region. The children featured in the design represent 3 generations: one who lived before colonization, one who endured the time of the residential school system, and one who walks in the present day. Together, they remind us that our stories stretch far beyond a single moment in time. As Anishinaabe, we understand ourselves through Onik Ubichan, again, I apologize for the mispronunciation, which is our shared connection to those who came before us and those who are yet to come. This design carries that teaching forward, that we are never alone, but always held within the circle of past, present, and future. In this way, the bus becomes more than transportation. It becomes a messenger, carrying stories of families reunited, languages relearned, ceremonies reborn. It honors the children still brought back to their resting places, while giving hope to the generations finding their way home to culture, community, and self. For some, the journey home is long and stretches across generations, but there will always be a light in the window waiting to guide us back, end quote. So I want to very much thank artist Bernard Remsmer for creating this meaningful design and sharing it, as well as the difficult history that it represents with Waterloo and Waterloo Region's residents, and that will be unveiled tomorrow. As we know, our truth and our history are difficult, and we cannot skip this on the way to reconciliation. So again, tomorrow I encourage all of our residents from the city of Waterloo and the region to stop, to reflect, to learn, and to act. And as a city, we recommit ourselves to continued learning about and grappling with the truth during this time of reflection and remembrance. We further commit to the year-round and long-term work of reconciliation with the goal of creating a better community for the 7 generations yet to come. I want council, staff, and residents to know that the learning and the work that we are doing as a city is not performative. Internally, addressing systemic barriers and internal challenges are not easy, and nor is it quick work. But undoing and unlearning barriers to equity, inclusion that have existed and persisted and have been reinforced for centuries is difficult, time-consuming work for all involved. However, with our continually increasing awareness of these barriers and opportunities to make a difference, we are and we will continue to do this work. I want to take a moment to particularly thank the city's Indigenous advisor, Brian Hill, who is leading the work related to addressing the Truth and Reconciliations Commission's recommendations for municipalities. Some of this work includes internal training, policy change, development and evaluation of programs, services, policies, and practices. It includes working with the Waterloo Region's Reconciliation Action Plan Working Group, where Brian has been a leader since it started. This is also the group, the RAP is also a group of municipal representatives who are working to coordinate efforts to support Indigenous-centered initiatives across Waterloo Region. And a couple of examples of things that this group has done is led discussions with our planning departments from the heads of all of the 8 municipalities in Waterloo Region, with local developers, and more importantly, with representatives from the 6 nations of the Grand River and Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. And they've developed a framework for engaging in consultation with 6 nations and Mississaugas of the Credit with respect to planning and development in Waterloo and Waterloo Region. So again, I want to thank Brian Hill and Joel Cotter, our Senior Director of Planning, for leading this work on behalf of the City of Waterloo. The Reconciliation Action Partnership has also recently selected a firekeeper by the name of Anastasia Lyons. Firekeepers are vital in First Nations culture as they tend to sacred fires, which are a spiritual and cultural practice central to ceremonies, healing, and communication with the spirit world. This role is deeply tied to the holistic worldview that views fire as a gift from the Creator, essential for life, community, and the health of the land through practices like cultural burning. Firekeepers maintain the sacred fire during important gatherings and ceremonies, manage cultural burns to foster healthy ecosystems, and help individuals find inner balance by nurturing their personal fires of body, mind, and spirit. So we welcome Anastasia Lyons, firekeeper, and thank her in advance for the important role that she will have in our community. On a broader level, I want to just also share that developing and maintaining relationships with local Indigenous communities and building that foundation of trust, respect, and transparency is really important to me. And Brian and I have met over the past 3 years and recently again to discuss this and how to best and better go about building and maintaining these relationships. On a provincial level, I want people to be aware that the Association of Municipalities of Ontario have also in 2023 established an Indigenous Advisory Council, and after a great deal of discussion, consultation, research and learning, or unlearning, AMO launched its Indigenous Reconciliation Action Plan at our conference in August 2025. This plan will assist and lead municipalities across Ontario in understanding how to foster relationships, listen, unlearn, and honor Indigenous people, and to guide implementation of their own municipalities' Reconciliation Action Plan. And once again, I want to note that Brian Hill, the City of Waterloo's Indigenous Advisor, provided great leadership to the AMO's Indigenous Advisory Council as it developed this plan. Certainly, this is not an exhaustive list of the work that the City of Waterloo Council and staff are doing. We know there is much more to do, and as I said, we are committed to continuing to do this work. But most importantly, on behalf of us all, I want to thank Chief Sherry Hill of the Six Nations of the Grand River and Chief Claire Salt of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, and local leaders like Maegan Henry, UW's Indigenous Knowledge Keeper, and Dr. Darren Thomas, Laurier's VP of Indigenous Initiatives, and of course our own Brian Hill, and other local Indigenous leaders for their patience with us and for their willingness to work with us as we continue our journey of reconciliation. Miigwech. So at the beginning of the council meeting, we pause to think about the needs of our community. May we show wisdom and compassion in all our decisions. Council, does anyone have a disclosure of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof? Seeing none, then we will start with our presentations, which we have representatives from the Waterloo Region Police Services who have a presentation about the future use of CCTV in community safety. So I will welcome Deputy Chief Jen Davis and I'm not sure who else is here with her. I think we have Jamie Sheridan, and I apologize, I don't know the other person's name, and David Mullock from our WRPS as well. So over to you, Deputy Chief, and thanks for joining us today.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor McCabe and members of Waterloo Council. We appreciate the opportunity to present to you today on our closed circuit television and automated license plate recognition program as we continue our plans towards launching a pilot phase of the program later this year. I would also like to acknowledge J.S. Balaskanthan, the Executive Director of the Uptown Waterloo Business Improvement Area, and we really appreciate your support. In 2020, the Ministry of the Solicitor General launched the Closed Circuit Television Grant Program as part of the Ontario Guns, Gangs, and Violence Reduction Strategy, with the goal to strengthen community safety and give law enforcement the tools they need to keep Ontarians safe. Since that time, we have seen numerous police services begin to implement or expand CCTV technologies within their community. During that same period locally, the Waterloo Regional Police Service was implementing our in-car video and body-worn video project across the service. In 2024, when the Ontario government opened a call for applications, the Ontario CCTV Grant Program, we applied and were successful in receiving $100,000 of grant funding, which we then matched. The past 4 years has provided us the opportunity to learn from the experiences elsewhere, to explore and test different CCTV technologies for some significant events, including St. Patrick's Day and Homecoming, both in 2024 and 2025. Relying on these experiences and incorporating the Information and Privacy Commissioner's guidelines on the use of video surveillance and automated license plate recognition systems for police services, WRPS has spent the better part of the year building on its CCTV program. Why CCTV? We believe that CCTV is another investigative tool that police can use to keep our communities safe. It supports our crime suppression strategy by providing resources and tools where they are needed the most, by focusing on areas that are impacted by violent crime and disorder incidents, by helping to deter and reduce the opportunities for crime to occur, and by assisting in the investigations and improvement of outcomes. CCTV supports frontline operations by providing timely access to video evidence that can be used to advance a criminal investigation, to alert an officer to a crime vehicle through an ALPR hit, or when live monitored for a specific event, to proactively direct officers to an incident prior to it escalating and needing additional resources to respond. We saw this used in this capacity.
Sorry to interrupt. If you need these slides advanced, can you just maybe, can you do it yourself?
Yeah.
Or
Can I do it myself? I think I can.
or you could just say next slide, and I think Rook can do it.
Yeah, I'm not there yet.
Okay, I just, sorry.
Thank you, no problem, okay. We did see the used in this capacity most recently this past weekend with our Wilfrid Laurier homecoming, where it was really used as a proactive tool in directing the resources of our officers. All identified camera and ALPR locations across the various municipalities and townships have been determined using an evidence-based and data-driven approach. Our Services Crime Analysis Unit conducted a 3-year historical review of uniform crime reported data, citizen-generated calls for service, areas identified of having higher crime and disorder incidents based on established crime types, concerns identified by the community, as well as service-specific considerations focused on areas of higher victimization rates for serious offenses including firearm, break-and-enter, and robbery violations. Based on the data received and with the recognition of all of the municipalities and townships that showed interest in the program, 10 locations with a total of 52 cameras consisting of both CCTV and ALPR were identified across the region as a phase 1 launch of the program. This map here shows the results of the analysis specific to Waterloo with a focus on violent crime, which helped to inform the locations selected. You may have picked up on me saying that there were 52 cameras across 10 locations, and that is because each location may have different requirements that can be filled using a combination of camera types, including PTZ or pan-tilt zoom cameras, bullet and multi-sensor cameras. PTZ cameras will be deployed in areas identified with higher pedestrian traffic, such as the uptown core of Waterloo. This camera type provides the opportunity to scan large areas using 360-degree pan, 220-degree tilt, and 32 times optical zoom. Bullet cameras serve one of two functions: providing clear footage even at a distance, both in daylight and darkness, or for license plate recognition, making them a useful tool at various gateways into and out of identified locations across the region. A function of these cameras would also be to alert officers to a crime vehicle that has been flagged and is entering or driving through locations within the region to allow for proactive response. Multi-sensor cameras cover a wide range because they contain 4 individual cameras, all from one single point. Each sensor includes zoom capabilities and can be combined with license plate reader technology, making them effective at intersections. We have heard from other police agencies how video evidence obtained from these cameras has been useful in other jurisdictions to also investigate vehicle collisions. All cameras can be mounted and powered using existing infrastructure. As a summary, CCTV provides several advantages to police services that supports the ability to solve crime and enhance public safety. Although relatively newer to Canada and even more so maybe in Ontario, there are numerous examples that we have already identified where CCTV helped to reduce or to solve crime. In the city of Winnipeg, where CCTV has been used since about 2009, CCTV footage was seen to directly assist in solving 4 homicides. Between July 2023 and July 2024, police in the city of Peterborough accessed CCTV footage 48 times to investigate violent crimes, including 2 homicides. Since launching their pilot in April 2024, York Regional Police has seen a reduction of violent crime by 6% within 1 kilometer of where the cameras are located. Just last week, York announced an expansion of their CCTV program. Guelph Police has reported how CCTV has helped to assist in investigations including shoplifting, break-and-enter, vehicle thefts, and missing persons. Most significantly, the Chief of Guelph Police spoke publicly about how CCTV was used to provide timely information to officers responding in their downtown core to a significant violent stabbing incident. We have already experienced benefits of AL technology here in Waterloo region. Earlier in 2025, a stolen vehicle involved in a shooting incident was added to our ALPR hot list. An officer driving past it was alerted to the hit, and subsequently officers were able to pull the vehicle over and seize it as part of an investigation. Unfortunately, we also have numerous examples of where CCTV and ALPR technology was not available when, had it been, it likely would have captured a crime occurring and supported a timely criminal investigation. What CCTV is not, it is not a speed enforcement camera. It is not live monitored, but it does provide an opportunity to live monitor for real-time operations for a significant incident so that we can direct officers to ensure a proactive and coordinated response. CCTV and ALPR cameras are placed using data-driven and evidence-based approach. Access to cameras and footage is restricted to a select number of members, as identified in both internal procedures and the privacy impact assessment. CCTV and ALPR locations will be shared publicly once confirmed. A sign like what you see in this slide will be posted at each location. Included on that sign is a legal authority to collect information, as well as a QR code that will direct members of the public to our website where information will be provided, along with the locations of all of the cameras posted. The whole program is intended to be transparent to ensure ongoing public trust and confidence in police operations. As we build out our CCTV and ALPR program, we have incorporated recommendations from the Information and Privacy Commissioner of Ontario with respect to both automated license plate
You have 1 minute left.
recognition and use of video surveillance. We have engaged and met with the IPC. We will be completing a full privacy impact assessment shortly, which will be shared with all partners as we work through building memorandums of understanding. We will be using a 30-day retention period for stored data. This timeframe has been seen as a standard for retention where CCTV is used, and as seen as both proportionate and reasonable to enhance public safety balanced against one's right to privacy. CCTV will continue to be assessed against existing guidelines provided by the Office of the Information and Privacy Commissioner of Ontario. And lastly, as mentioned, data is stored using an encrypted cloud-based solutions that are located in Canada. This slide is
You're
not
out of time, but I think it's important to finish this presentation.
Okay,
Go ahead.
okay. So I actually added this slide to show an example of why we look to have a 30-day retention period for this data. And the reason being that in this example, patterns are identified by our crime analysis. They're monitored for up to 21 days to evaluate if additional incidents occur. And as a result, accountability and investigations of a pattern can take anywhere between 21 and 35 days. In this example, a hotspot pattern was identified of theft from motor vehicles, and as a result of this investigation and review, a person of interest was identified and charges were laid. It was actually related to over 100 occurrences in the end and linked to charges of that offender in all cases. Photos and video from security cameras and body-worn were used to link clothing and physical descriptors to reported occurrences. And this is just one example where the assistance of CCTV camera footage would have been really instrumental in this investigation. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation and for coming here today. And I know our clerk, you can sit down for a minute if you want. Our clerk just has a couple comments she wanted to make, and then we'll have you come. Sure, you can sit there for questions from council. Go ahead, Julie.
Thank you. I'm just going to speak a little bit about the city's role in this project. So as you know, we've entered into previous memorandums of understanding with WRPS using this type of technology for St. Paddy's Day and homecoming on a time-limited use. The intention would be to enter into an agreement that would be an ongoing agreement, so cameras could be placed as needed by WRPS according to their crime statistics, so we wouldn't require those event-specific agreements in the future. The MOUs are necessary because WRPS is attaching their equipment to our infrastructure, so similar to other access agreements. But whenever we have an agreement that involves privacy concerns, then our team also gets involved in reviewing the data and reviewing the privacy impact assessments to satisfy ourselves that any privacy concerns are mitigated through the way that the technology is being implemented. This is a type of technology that the IPC commissioners across Canada has recognized as a tool. The city ourselves used to use ALPR technology on our municipal enforcement vehicles for parking tickets, and while there is a need to update that vehicle, it is something that the city will be using again in the future. So it is a type of technology that the city has used and will be continuing to use in the future. So the IPC commissioners have acknowledged that it can be used where the statistics warrant it. It's not the intention to create an overall surveillance state, but to deal with those hotspots that the deputy chief mentioned. And as they continue to work through their privacy impact assessment and we continue to finalize the terms of the memorandum of understanding, we've been really pleased with what we've seen to date. As far as their considerations, they're being very open about where the cameras will be located. As mentioned, there will be a website so that the public can go on at any point in time to see where they're located. There'll be signage. It's very obvious that the cameras are installed on poles. We've been pleased with the height that has been mentioned of the cameras because it provides more of a downward angle rather than a lower to the ground angle where you're seeing the face more readily. It will pan across intersections, but it does provide some distance. We've also been pleased with the information they've provided around the information security with the data being housed in Canada, and also some of the measures that are put in place on the cameras themselves to protect against theft of the data and the information. And the data retention of the footage is also similar to our own CCTV data retention schedule, so we support the 30-day retention. I do want to highlight and emphasize that this project does not involve the city being able to tap into this network at all. Neither does it involve WRPS tapping into our CCTV network. It is their own network that they will manage, they will maintain responsibility, liability over the information that they're collecting. But it is a project that the staff have been working on with WRPS over the years for those specific uses I mentioned at the beginning. And it is something that the Uptown BIA has also supported, and I think Council previously received their letter supporting the initial grant application, and I just recirculated that earlier today. So I'm happy to respond to questions from the city perspective if you have any.
Thank you very much, Julie. And so with that, I'll ask Council if there's any questions. I'm looking, yep, okay, I'm waiting for hands to go up. Okay, go ahead, Councillor Wright.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. I'm wondering if Deputy Chief Davis could just tell us a little bit about how you work with local businesses who already have security cameras installed.
So we have our downtown visibility officers that are engaging with local businesses almost on a daily basis, especially in the uptown core and downtown cores in Kitchener and Cambridge. One of the things that they recently actually became quite involved in was actually registering their existing cameras through our CamSafe program as well, or through CamSafe. It's not our program, but it's a program that we can access. And that is a system where they can register where their cameras are, what views their cameras might show, so that if there is a crime that's committed in an area, we can access their contact information to reach out to receive that video footage. So we have seen, since we launched CamSafe approximately 2 months ago, over 300 people registering their cameras on that site. And we hope that with ongoing education and communication around that will increase and expand out throughout the community as well. So there is ongoing communication with our business owners.
Did you have a follow-up?
No, thank you very much for that.
Thank you very much. Councillor Rowe.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Thank you for your presentation. My question is about, well, it's around the location. So I completely understand the crime suppression need and desire for the program. What I'm wondering, just based on the map, I can certainly think of one neighborhood in my ward that will, it appears on the map, that will be having a CCTV camera. So my question is, were there considerations for racialized neighborhoods, low-income neighborhoods, and what the perhaps disproportionate surveillance of those populations would be with this type of program?
So that is one of the topics that comes up even with respect to crime suppression. And again, the information that is used to actually identify these neighborhoods is actually information that is collected from the community through those citizen-generated calls for service, through those calls of concern that citizens are calling and reporting about. So it's not us going out and identifying the neighborhoods. We're identifying the neighborhoods through the community, bringing those concerns towards us. The other piece of it is that it is intended to focus on areas where violence or crime are occurring. So that is the key aspect of where the camera locations need to be, where we're directing our police resources, where we're increasing officer presence and visibility already. So it is another tool with respect to prevention, with respect to breaking that cycle of allowing another crime to be committed. But I do need to say that every time we're dealing with a problem area, problem individual, or anything, we always have a community-based response as well. The three go hand in hand. The community-based response may be visibility of our officers. Let's say we use that example of theft from vehicles that are happening in a neighborhood. It's our officers that are going door to door, handing out lock it or lose it campaigns. It's public messaging. It's posting and communication around what we can do to prevent crime. So each of these things is, it's a holistic approach. It's not one approach or the other. We really try to work with community as well to help address some of the own issues that are occurring.
Thank you. I think it highlights the tension between neighborhoods as well. Like, just from my own experience, there'll be a portion of the neighborhood that is impacted by another portion of the neighborhood, perhaps, and so it may highlight those disparities. So my concern is just about the focus on racialized and low income. I'm wondering, and maybe David, you could speak to this, if this is something we could talk about offline and we could just have a conversation about where this would be located in Ward 6.
Thank you, Councillor Rowe. Councillor Vasek.
Thanks, through Mayor McCabe. Thanks for your presentation. I have a few questions, so I can stop after my three and then go on if that's permitted. And I'd like to build on Councillor Rowe's question around equity. It's certainly an important topic. So, well, a couple of things. One, I definitely appreciate the kind of investigative potential. That's what you're talking about, right? It's like the having video evidence and being able to see what has happened, and in real time. But there's a recent study out of the UK about public housing and the use of CCTV in public housing, where it says that actually CCTV does a poor job of identifying women, trans folks, and racialized folks. So I'm just curious if you're familiar with that research or how to mitigate against the potential for disproportionately targeting people through CCTV in some of those hot spots. And we know that those hot spots are often, though not always, home to more equity-denied groups.
So I think the best way for me to answer that, those search criteria that you're describing would be prohibited searches in this technology. So this system includes prohibited search categories around race, ethnicity, nationality, educational qualifications, religious beliefs. You can't add in a subjective descriptor into the system. You can't put in names of specific people, public figures, offensive descriptors, slurs, open source queries. There is routine moderation tests that are conducted to avoid any type of bias from being entered. So really the information that you're entering to do a search would be if a victim or a witness says, the person that assaulted me was wearing a red 49ers jersey, we could type in identify persons wearing a red 49ers jersey, and the camera can search for those descriptors. So there are systems that are built into the process and safeguards to actually prevent exactly what you're talking about.
Thanks. That certainly clears up the search process. But I guess what I'd be curious about for follow-up information, if we are given that, would be, I mean, if you can't actually properly identify somebody through the actual video clip itself, and obviously you have properly identified some people in the past, but if it does a poor job of identifying, as the study indicated, then does that mean that there are suspects who have to then go through the police process and the investigative process who were wrongly identified? And I know humans can wrongly identify too, but who could be wrongly identified through the video camera and thus exposing folks to the criminal justice process. So it's more information that I'd be curious about. Good to know some safeguards are in place, but I am just more curious about those additional safeguards.
Yeah, so it uses specific search criteria. So it is specific search criteria that an investigator or someone approved to use the system can actually enter into the system. So you can put multiple different factors into the system. The search criteria will come back with a selection of whatever it's filtered through that system. As I mentioned, it is a tool. It's a tool like we would use for any other CCTV system that we have. By being a tool, what it means is that no matter what it filters out, an investigator still has to go through each of those pictures or snippets or evidence that it collects to rule out, is this a person of interest or is this person not related at all? Does it actually pick up the descriptor that I entered or does it not? So the other piece about this that is really nice to know is there is still a human in the loop, as they refer to it. So when we talk about like AI and use of AI and algorithms, like you're not dealing with that in the situation because the human is still involved in entering the search criteria and then in evaluating and investigating what comes back from a result. Yes, there will be times, just like in any case, where we receive information on persons of interest where you might get a false positive, but that's where the human comes into play to actually conduct the investigation to get it to the point of, this is not just a person of interest, this is my suspect.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Did you have one more question?
Yeah, I indicated I have a handful of questions or a few questions, and I'm happy to.
Yeah, so do your next question, and then we'll go, because we've got a couple of other counselors in line, and we can come back to you. So
Very happy
All
to
right.
do that.
Okay.
Yes, thank you. Okay. Maybe just a practical question. When are we planning as a municipality to enter into the MOU, and is that an operational or a council decision?
That would be an operational agreement, as we've entered into other access agreements. So it would be entered into at the time that the privacy impact assessment is complete and we've finalized details of the MOU with legal.
May I ask a follow-up to that specific question? Thank you. Do you have a timeline on that?
So we recently met with the IPC and received some recommendations back on the draft PIA, which we're incorporating into the PIA. Once completed, we will be sharing the PIA with IPC because they would like to review it, obviously. They've asked for about 4 weeks' time to review that. Once it's finalized, we would be sharing it with the municipalities and townships. That PIA is really that piece we would need to complete the drafting of any MOU. So I would probably say that we're probably 6 weeks at least out from that happening, if not a little bit longer.
thanks very much. And just for the benefit of us listening, PIA means?
It's the Privacy Impact Assessment.
Okay, and IPC?
IPC is the Information and Privacy Commissioner of Ontario.
Okay, great. Just want to remind us of that. Okay, Councillor Hanmer.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Through you, thank you both for the presentation and the responses to the questions so far. Deputy Chief Davis, I'm interested in building on Council Rowe's question a little bit, and it's around communication to the public in general about the use of the CCTVs and also the choice of the locations, and what's the plan? I'm curious about the plan for doing that.
Oh, that's a great question. We have an information evening set up. Right now it's scheduled for November the 12th. So it will be for public consultation, public information, to answer any questions that may come up from community. And then we are also working with our Equity, Diversity, Inclusion Unit for some focused engagements. A very similar process that we did when we rolled out in-car video and body-worn video, whether it's to answer questions or calm concerns or even incorporate any feedback. That's what those sessions will be for.
Great, thank you. Thank you for that. I think it's important that we do get that information out and have multiple opportunities for people to learn about it and then raise their questions. So I'm glad to hear the approach. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Roach.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. Thank you, Deputy Chief Davis, for your presentation. And Julie, thank you. I also have concerns that my colleagues had too with about, possibly algorithmic bias in over-policing of marginalized communities. And I'm just wondering, will the cameras use facial recognition now or in the future?
Sorry. The cameras are not equipped with AI facial recognition technology. The only place in the process where AI is used is during that search functionality. So when an investigator enters in the search criteria, AI is what is scanning the saved data to actually pull out and filter through that material. And again, it is then up to the investigator, or that human element, to actually go through and verify the accuracy of that data and investigate. And simply, it is doing exactly what a human would do currently, what we do now when we get video from a store or anything, but it's a person that is sitting manually watching that video.
Thank you, Deputy Chief. Just one further question, and this question has to do with regard to cost versus alternatives. And do we know the projected cost of the CCTV expansion, and how does that compare to investing the same amount of money into community-based prevention programs?
That's a good question. I would have to say that it's not about one or the other. I think the two need to actually go hand in hand. So this year, as I said, for 10 locations and 52 cameras, that cost is just under $200,000, of which half of it is provided by the provincial grant. We would look to take advantage of any future grant opportunities to help supplement that, recognizing that oftentimes when we do receive a grant, there is a requirement as well to also invest some of our own money along with that grant money. So we would be looking at a future expansion in future years. I would say something significant to consider is that we don't ever want CCTV to be something that there's oversaturation of in a community. And we already know that there is a lot of infrastructure in place across the region that does use CCTV camera footage. In a future phase, that would actually not require new cameras, but could actually be us being able to access existing camera infrastructure. And that is what we're starting to see happening in other jurisdictions right now, where MOUs are being expanded to, say, allow access in certain circumstances or under certain criteria to maybe tap into Grand River Transit cameras or a school board camera or a private business camera or City of Waterloo cameras. So that would be a future thing that would mitigate cost of new cameras, but would still allow for access to existing infrastructure. When you say, how does that balance against community-focused initiatives, as I mentioned earlier, I would say the two need to go hand in hand. Anything that we address from a crime suppression standpoint, a crime prevention standpoint, is around how do we address person-based issues, so our prolific offenders. How do we address place-based issues, so where are we seeing high victimization, high crime, and then what are we doing to actually work with community to help community own and be involved in bettering their own community. So what are we doing around education? What are we doing around partnerships, community support? So all three of those things go hand in hand and really just show the need for both.
Did you have a follow-up?
No, just thank you, Deputy Chief.
Okay, thank you very much. And I'm just looking to see if Councillor Freeman or Councillor Bodley have any questions. No? Okay, we'll go back to Councillor Vasek.
Thanks. I'm sure it's not a surprise I have several questions about this. I'm sure it's not a surprise I have several questions about this. Okay. And I appreciate all my colleagues' questions as well. And I really do appreciate the opportunity to hear about this in public chambers as well. Okay, I'm going to leave these two questions. Maybe I'd ask them different. It's just about crime prevention through environmental design, and wonder if you work with the municipality for that. Are you guys familiar with crime prevention through environmental design?
We have multiple members trained in our community youth engagement, and I actually think we're running a training program for municipal staff this fall on it.
On crime prevention through environmental design? Oh, I thought you said youth engagement. And I was
Our community youth engagement team is trained on doing that. They do community engagement. So yes, a lot of them are trained on SEPTED reports.
Got it.
And one of the recommendations in a SEPTED report is often the inclusion of camera or video systems. Yeah.
Yes. Yes, thank you. Yes, it seems like you can't have, or you ought not to have the cameras without the SEPTED or other approaches like you've mentioned here. My other question about, you've really highlighted how much of the requests for CCTV cameras or increased service come from the neighborhoods themselves. And why this is a concern to me is because in some of these neighborhoods, lower income neighborhoods, there are people from countries refugees, new Canadians from countries who come from high conflict areas, and there is tension in those communities between people who come from different countries. And everyone can kind of get into the us and them, better than, worse than surveillance, including equity-denied folks, right? And so my question is, when you use the language of, it's not us, it's not the police wanting to put cameras in these areas, it's the community themselves. What I see that it does is it really places, it allows police and institutions like municipalities to shirk our accountability for perpetuating that harm. And so I have some curiosities about if you're working with folks to talk about how placing that onus on communities to effectively snitch on other people in their neighborhood. What's our responsibility to finding other upstream ways, like Councillor Roach was indicating, rather than doing the CCTV cameras? It's such a very difficult tension for me when you say that. Like, it really gets my worry for the future going. You know, we have folks coming in from these countries, and we say it's really welcoming, but we're just perpetuating the harm. Ugh.
So I never ever said that it's us against them, and I did not insinuate that we are putting the onus on them. What I said is, by using that data, it allows us to use an evidence-driven and data-based approach. That is purely statistical, that is purely objective information. That is not bias that's being included in it. That is the data. That is what data is showing us. But when you raise the thing about how else we could be engaging with community, I will say that data has actually identified for us neighborhoods where we see a need to actually have more proactive, visible presence, to work with youth, to work with families, to work with single-parent families, to try and create positive relationships and engagement. So what you've kind of tried insinuated there is actually not what's happening. The data actually also helps to inform what we are doing proactively to work with some of those communities where those needs are highest. And whether it's support through our EDI, whether it's support from our community youth engagement teams, that is actually what is driving a lot of the proactive work that we're doing as well.
Yes, thank you. I know you're doing good work, and I know you're doing proactive upstream work as well. So I certainly appreciate that. I do think I wasn't insinuating anything, so apologies for that. But I was pointing out also evidence-based facts about how these kind of programs do pit neighbors against neighbors, and then so when we use the language of community, I'd just be happy to talk about it more. I'm trying to be really delicate because I don't want to be antagonistic, but it is a big concern of mine, so I'd just love any opportunities to speak about it further. My final question is related to the statistic about the decrease in crime, and you mentioned a few places. One of the things that I've encountered in my research about this is that it appears that CCTVs can be most effective in places like car parks or residential areas for some of those kind of really like targeted spots, but that it's not as effective in violent crime. So I was really interested when you said that it is effective in curbing violent crime, and that's actually one of the things you're using most. So it's a discrepancy for me here, seeing the research say it's not as effective there, and you saying it is effective. And then another thing that you said, and definitely correct me if I'm wrong, is that you see a reduction in violent crime where there are cameras, including, you gave the example of York, 6% decrease. So I guess my question is, I mean, if I were a murderer and I saw a sign that said there's a CCTV camera, I probably wouldn't do the murder there. So my question is, are you seeing a reduction in violent crime overall, or only in areas where the cameras are, and how are you tracking that kind of data?
So as I mentioned to you, I think there needs to be a lot more longitudinal research that is done on this, especially in Ontario, because it is relatively new. And when we look across Ontario police agencies, for the most part, it's been the last 4 years since the grant's been put in place where we've really seen the expansion of CCTV, except for some such as Sudbury that's had it for quite some time, and a few others. What I can say is if you were to look at violent crime is going down. Like there's nothing to, like you can look that up and see that publicly recorded that it is going down. But it does act as a deterrent. Cameras can act as a deterrent to do exactly what you just said, to deter a person from committing a crime when they believe that it could be recorded. However, I can use the example of Uptown Waterloo, is that people that are coming to Uptown Waterloo likely assume that there is CCTV cameras, whether it's owned by private businesses, industries, the bar district, whether it's the city of Waterloo's own cameras, and yet we still had a homicide in 2023. We've had 2 recent sexual assaults that have gone unsolved, and for us, we wonder and we believe that had we had access to CCTV video footage, we likely would have had more leads to follow up on in identifying the suspects or the persons in those incidents, if not at all, in a more timely way as well. And that's the thing, when we are doing a search for CCTV cameras, it can take days, weeks, etc., to actually collect video evidence that's been obtained, whereas what we're trying to suggest is that by collecting that evidence, we actually have more timely access to evidence. It doesn't preclude the fact we would still have to go and get it, but it does provide more timely access to evidence as well. And that, to me, is the concerning piece, is we have seen a couple of instances recently in Waterloo that I believe likely CCTV would have played a positive role in identifying persons in those.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I mean, I obviously don't. I see why you want to use them, and I also don't want violent crimes and murders and rape. But I obviously have major concerns with CCTV and feel icky about being on council when we're putting it in. At the same time, I appreciate that you're doing it and that we're going to collect longitudinal data from here. But I would definitely point you to Welsh and Farrington. They seem to be seminal researchers in this area, and they've been doing research for a long time and have done both a systematic review on research for, I think, the last 40 years, actually, elsewhere. So maybe it would be useful in some of the research that you're doing as well. I do appreciate all your time and responses to my questions, though. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Vasek, and I think there's some interesting studies that you've pointed them to that they could follow up with, so thanks for adding that. Councillor Rowe.
Thank you, through you, Chair. I just wanted to actually ask for clarification on the question that Councillor Hanmer asked about communication and engaging with the public. And you had mentioned the public information session, regular communications, and also focus groups. Can you clarify for me if that means going into neighborhoods where some of these cameras may be placed? And my thinking on that is, depending on populations, people will not be coming out of those neighborhoods to go to these meetings. So it's about sharing the information into the neighborhood. So I'm just curious if that's been a consideration.
100%, and that's really where our EDI team comes into play, because they have the relationships and the contacts within the community to set up those sessions to find out where is it most comfortable, is it within the community, is it somewhere else, would they rather do it virtual, etc. So we really try to base those meetings on what community needs and what their various needs may be.
Thank you for clarifying.
Thank you, Councillor Rowe. And just a follow-on question from around the timelines for implementation. I was curious about, did I hear you say that it's November 12th you're holding these consultations?
November 12th is set up as the public information evening, yes.
Okay, because I think you also said that these will be operational in 6 weeks. So those two, or did I misunderstand that?
No, that was when we hope that we can be able to approach legal with the City of Waterloo to actually work on finishing the MOU. Once the privacy impact assessment is back from IPC, finalized, everything is good to move forward, and then we can complete the MOU. And once that is done, we can work towards like an implementation or installation phase.
Oh, okay, thanks for clarifying that, because I was concerned that the public consultation session was going to be after you started it, and I was wondering how that would work. So, okay, I'm glad. Thank you for clarifying that. And just the other question, because other people have asked my other questions, like this is being run right now in a provincial grant. So what happens if the grant is not renewed?
So we do try and earmark some funds that would allow for either expansion or stabilizing existing infrastructure that we have in place, so whether that's licensing fees, et cetera. There are different grants that come up. There is another grant that recently came up that we could reallocate, like CCTV camera footage could fit under it. Right now we're using it for something else. But so there's different opportunities that do come up. This would be something that we would probably be putting into our budget, and we're still working on what that phased approach looks like over the next 3 to 5 years to finalize what that plan actually looks like. And we could report on that at a future time as well as to what we would think that that cost per year would be.
Okay. Thank you for that. And just because for anyone who might be listening, could you just remind us when because of the WRPS is having budget input sessions, I think one was today, is that correct? And when is the next one?
So there was one today between 1 and 2, and the second one is on the evening of October the 29th.
Okay, so that's just for anyone in the public who wants to provide their input to the development of the police's budget. That would be the place to go. I know a lot of people show up at regional council asking for different things in or out of the budget of that budget, but this is the opportunity to have your direct say to the Police Services Board. So, okay, so thank you very much, everyone, for your questions. Thank you, DC Davis, and to our clerk Julie for providing this information. This was for information only, and we appreciate the update. It's important to know about what is happening just overall with these and the statistics in our community. So thanks very much. Oh, sorry, you had, go ahead.
Sorry, Mayor McCabe. It's Monday, October 27th from 6 to 7 p.m.
Okay, Monday, October 27th. 27th, okay. All right, thanks very much. Appreciate that update. Okay, thank you very much again. And so our next presentation is Patrick Gilbride, who is the Executive Director from REAP Green Solutions. Welcome, Patrick. Patrick's doing a tour of all the municipalities in Waterloo region, and so this is City of Waterloo's time. So
Yep.
over to you, thank you.
Thank you very much. Happy to be here. You're number 3 of 8, so. Good afternoon, Mayor McCabe, councilors, and staff. We're pleased to be here to present to you our most recent impact report and some of the stories from Waterloo residents and from across the Grand River watershed. This year marks a special milestone for us. It's our 25th year of these kind of reports, reporting to the community. 25 years represents an entire generation's worth of positive impact. And that's all the more important since we know that the decisions that we make today will resonate for many generations to come. It's in that spirit that we're celebrating the myriad of accomplishments over the last 25 years of impact on climate action by the community. It's this legacy which gives us hope that we can carry forward the necessary momentum needed to catalyze everything from the energy transition to planting trees to flood-proofing entire neighborhoods. Jamie is a great example of someone looking to make that energy transition. By installing a hybrid heat pump system, he's migrating his family away from gas to electricity. With the recent cancellation of the federal carbon tax, Jamie chose wisely to invest in solar panels at the same time that he installed his heat pumps. And we're finding that that's becoming a more and more common pairing, heat pumps along with solar, so that they can sort of offset that electricity and become a little bit closer to net zero. Between 2023 and 2024, over half of the heat pumps installed in Ontario homes were undersized. Many contractors don't have the information that they need in order to make an informed recommendation, which often leads to a one-size-fits-all scenario. With a little extra work, when we perform an energy evaluation, we can analyze a home's HVAC capacity and electrical load requirements for installing a heat pump and provide those contractors with the precise specifications that they need in order to right-size a heat pump. The wildfires that we've experienced across Canada over this past year are a stark reminder of the need to adapt to more and more extreme weather. Through our Healthy Yards programs, we work with homeowners to use nature as a way to make their neighborhoods more resilient to the risk of flooding. With our Rain Smart Neighborhoods program, we take a targeted approach to focus this work where it's needed most in priority neighborhoods and subwatersheds. And by enhancing the capacity of existing stormwater infrastructure, these neighborhoods will be better able to manage that flood risk and improve water quality. Water quality is of particular importance in our community as we draw upwards of 80% of our drinking water from groundwater. That's why we work with the region to protect this precious resource, and we help deliver a program run by the region where we work with property managers to reduce the amount of salt that they use for winter maintenance. Our popular backyard tree planting program continued in Cambridge, Kitchener, and Guelph, and in Waterloo. And we recognize the importance that the many benefits that trees provide are shared equitably throughout the community. That's why we launched a pilot phase of our community canopy program in the Chandler Moet neighborhood of Kitchener. And this pilot presented opportunities to engage with people within those neighborhoods to understand where they needed trees the most, and then replanted trees in people's yards at low or no cost, And in parallel, the City of Kitchener planted trees in boulevards, parks, and in other public spaces at the same time, which will really transform the neighborhood over time. This program has since expanded to several other lower canopy neighborhoods in Kitchener and has just started this summer in a lower canopy neighborhood in Cambridge. And our Tree of the Year campaign is another way that we use engagement with the community to educate people about the importance not just of planting trees, but looking after our existing tree canopy. And I'm happy to say that that this campaign has spun off into a lot of grassroots engagement and several events by people in the city of Waterloo, in Waterloo Park and elsewhere. Our native tree nursery is now producing 10,000 saplings a year, all grown from locally collected seed. Starting this fall, inspired by Trees for Woolwich, we are teaming up with the Region of Waterloo and the townships of Wilmot and Wellesley to launch an expanded roadside tree planting program. The funding that we secured from the Federation of Canadian Municipalities will make sure that we plant trees to expand the biodiversity, stormwater management, and provide many of the other environmental benefits. Our plan is to plant 9,000 trees over the next 2 years. We co-lead Climate Action WR with Sustainable Waterloo Region in partnership with all of our area municipalities, including the City of Waterloo. And most recently, we launched the With You We Can campaign, which is really intended to provide an on-ramp by connecting people with the local resources that they need to start their sustainability journey. And I was really happy to see such a great turnout at our first ever Climate Fest. Mayor McCabe, and I understand there were other people as well. I didn't get a chance to see everybody, so there was a lot of people there, but we really appreciate the turnout. And that was really blossomed out of a delegation from our Climate Action WR team last year at this very sort of council. So, in terms of our financials, as expected, we saw a decline in our fee-for-service revenue as energy evaluations declined with the lack of federal incentives for those types of programs. So we're definitely in the bust part of a boom and bust cycle. Luckily, through previous years, we had retained earnings that we were able to invest in new programs like that heat pump right-sizing program that I mentioned earlier. And finally, this is our most important slide. We like to say thank you. We really rely on our partners, City of Waterloo being an important one, for all of the support that you provide. And we're really proud to have City of Waterloo as one of our core funders. That's all of the logos up there now, which really contribute to the things that grants and other types of programs don't. But equally importantly, it helps us get through these boom and bust cycles that we're, as I mentioned, in right now. So just to finish off, we do want to give specific recognition of the municipal staff that we get a chance to work with on a day-to-day basis. Specifically, Sean McClay, Paola Mendez, Derek Brick, and Aristic, Sydney Sandluck, and Michelle Lee, among others. And I'll yield the rest of my time if there's any questions.
Thank you very much, Patrick. It's always good to have an update from REAP, and because they've been doing such great work in the community tirelessly and just on an ongoing chugging away for years and years. So thank you very much. Councillor Wright has a question.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. First off, I just want to commend REAP for all the really complementary services that you provide from an NGO and social enterprise level of service. One of the things that I have seen be extremely effective at the neighborhood level are Jane's Walks, where neighbors tour other neighbors through lot level mitigations that they've done, everything from green roofs to green driveways to heat pump installations, EV installation, like you name it, neighbors will let neighbors know what they've done. But I want to talk about that in the context of a lot of the misinformation around heat pump issues. And I'm just wondering how we can get that information out more comprehensively so that the people who are considering doing a heat pump installation have a lower learning curve. Like it still seems like most people lack a lot of confidence in pursuing heat pumps.
Yeah, that's a really good point, and that speaks to one of the reasons we developed the heat pump right sizing service, because there is a lot of misinformation out there, and a lot of it's either too technical or it's not really accessible to people. We do offer a heat pump coaching service for people if they go out and they get a contractor and they don't understand it, then we'll provide an hourly service where people can do that. I know there's different groups, little pockets of people in the region who are sort of working on exactly what you're talking about. One in Blair and Cambridge. They're really sort of trying to model that and talk about energy efficiency, heat pumps being a really sort of important piece of that. So it is happening, and it is, like you said, really sort of a grassroots initiative, and we try and support it where we can. Happy to talk more about that, but yeah, certainly we'd love to be able to scale that work, yeah.
Yeah, I guess that is my question is there a way that the city can be assisting with scaling that specifically?
Yeah. I'm certainly happy to take that conversation offline and talk to specific staff if that's helpful. Certainly something, as I said, we're open to. We're aware of kind of the landscape in that space, and we're always looking for opportunities, yeah.
Yeah, thanks for that. I just have one more question.
Yeah, I was just going to say, just sorry to interrupt, but at the region, we are looking at a program. I think we're going to confirm it, hopefully, through this year's budget process around having a program for homeowners to access heat pumps or other renewable energy systems. You're aware of that? Did you want
to
just,
so there is
just
an
elaborate a
initiative
little bit more?
to provide, it was originally sort of conceived, and there's still a large component of people being able to access low interest loans and be able to pay that back on their electricity bill. And part of that is some of that energy coaching services. Unfortunately, Innova is not part of that, so it wouldn't be available to City of Waterloo residents, but the energy coaching services would be.
Oh,
the
okay.
loans wouldn't be available.
Oh, okay. Thanks
Yeah.
for that clarification. I always think the heat pump issue is interesting because it's like heating, but it's also the cooling part, right? When we put in our heat pump, we got an air conditioning unit too, right? It's two services for the price of one.
Yeah, and I think that's where I'm coming from on this too, is I think there's a low awareness that it is an option for air conditioning, and that's something that's become top of mind for lots of people who have not traditionally had air conditioning, like myself. That it after a summer like this summer, it becomes untenable after week after week after week of really high temperatures. Okay, so my other question is really about flooding. And this has also been one of those years when there have been many lot level instances of basement flooding and just either extreme precipitation or our very big snow melt back in the spring caused a significant amount of flooding. And so I'm just wondering, again, what we can be doing more comprehensively on the community education side. A good chunk of Ward 7 is in floodplain or adjacent to floodplain. And so it's one of those things that, lot level mitigations are really incredibly important. I know you do this work, and so I'm just asking what else you think that we can be doing.
Yeah. As I mentioned with our Rain Smart Neighborhoods programs, it does take a multifaceted approach. So the education and awareness is a big piece of it. The lot level mitigation is a piece of it. The gray stormwater infrastructure is a piece of it. enhancing that with green infrastructure on the public side is another sort of piece of that puzzle. And there is, luckily we do have a variety of different tools, and it does take not just a variety of different tools, but a variety of different partners. Certainly there's if there's you know, specific you know, flood risk, that there's also kind of, that factors in sort of the economic sort of piece as well, that can help to drive that piece. So we aren't, other than that sort of top level layer of that awareness and education piece, most of our work, as I said, is funded in City of Kitchener, and then we also do some work with City of Guelph on their stormwater infrastructure piece.
So it sounds like that's actually an opportunity for City of Waterloo.
I would say that, yeah.
Okay, thanks for that. Gentle nudge.
Leading the witness, I think that's the. Are there other questions from council? Seeing none, I'll just add a couple. Oh, sorry, did I miss a hand over here? Okay. So you mentioned in your presentation that 50% of heat pumps are undersized. So what do you see as a solution for that problem? Or is that a solution that REAP's working on, or is it beyond?
Yeah, I mean, we're working on certainly that informational piece, and it does become, from a contractor perspective, incentives are great in some respects, but often they can distort the landscape. So if there's an incentive for X amount of dollars, then often contractors will install a heat pump of exactly that, you know, that will meet that dollar figure, without necessarily going past and doing that further analysis, because that will, you know, kick into their bottom line. So if we can, you know, provide some of that information up front, we provide it to the homeowner so that they can provide it to contractors and then get the right heat pump.
And you'd provide that through your energy audit, your home energy
Correct,
audit?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So yeah, just.
Can I just
go
clarify
ahead. Yeah.
something there? Did you say that the heat pump issues are that they're oversized or undersized?
Most are undersized.
Oh, undersized.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
thank you for that.
Great. And so then the Healthy Yards and Healthy Yards and Neighborhoods program, and then also the Community Canopy program, are these both just operated in Kitchener, or are any of those operated in Waterloo?
So we don't have a targeted priority neighborhood approach in any of the City of Waterloo neighborhoods. We have applied for some external funding with City of Waterloo as a partner to try and get some resources to deliver some of those. So far, we've not been successful. We're hoping to take another kick at the can. There's a new grant coming up in the next month or so. But right now, they're not available to Waterloo residents, yeah.
Okay. And is that through the Federation of Canadian Municipalities? Is that where the grants?
So in City of Kitchener, it's through Infrastructure Canada. The Disaster Mitigation and Adaptation Fund that's funding the public infrastructure work, and then we're brought on as a partner directly funded through the City of Kitchener.
Okay, okay. And so because the City of Waterloo, we received a grant a few months ago to plant 10,000 trees over 3 years. And is there a connection to REAP through that, or that's separate from this other grant you would apply for?
Not directly. Certainly we do, as I mentioned, deliver our backyard tree planting program with City of Waterloo. So hopefully that means that, you know, there's a bigger piece of the pie, and that means that there might be opportunities to work together, but we weren't directly involved in that particular funding initiative.
Okay, okay. Great. Thank you very much for this information. I don't see any other questions, but thank you very much again for the work that you do across our community, like in Waterloo and across Waterloo region. And I think you said we're 3 of the 8 municipalities, so
yeah.
Good luck with the rest of your tour, your municipal tour.
Thanks very much.
And thanks again for the excellent afternoon yesterday with Climate Fest. It was good to see you and so many other community partners there. Thanks, Patrick. Okay, so moving on, we are now at a planning meeting, which I see in our audience. We have a number of, I think they're a return of some of our University of Waterloo planning students, either in second or third year, so welcome back. I know a lot of you were here last week, and we have what we call an informal public meeting today. And do I need to read anything? Nope. So we have Ashlyn Fox and John, oh, sorry, I don't have that. I was just, oh, sorry, here it is. Sorry, Rick. I thought there was something to read. Okay, so prior to turning this over to Ashlyn, I will read our procedure. So this is an informal public meeting to consider item 5A, official plan amendment number 69 and zoning bylaw amendment Z2516. Rajdanar Rajmohan Lux Priya Rajmana, and sorry, you should have given me phonetic spelling, and Virjaram 277 and 279 Hazel Street. I apologize for really messing those names up. There will be no decisions made tonight. Council and the public are seeing this application for the first time. Council is looking for feedback from interested parties with respect to this application. Tonight's comments will be taken into consideration in developing a staff position on this application, and the staff report will be considered by Council during a formal public meeting at a future date. All property owners within 120 meters of the subject lands and anyone who signs the registry will receive notice of the formal public meeting. Anyone who wants further notice of this application, including the formal public meeting and the passage of any bylaw, should sign the appropriate registry located on the desk at the rear of the council chambers. Our planner, Ashlyn Fox, will now provide a brief overview of the application. Welcome, Ashlyn.
Okay, good afternoon, Mayor, members of council, city staff, and the public. This is the informal public meeting for official plan amendment number 69 and zoning bylaw amendment Z-25-16 for 277 and 279 Hazel Street. The site is located on the west side of Hazel Street, between Hickory Street West and Balsam Street, just south of the intersection at Hickory Street West. This is in the Northdale neighborhood. The site is currently composed of 2 individual detached residential buildings. The proposal will consolidate the 2 lots, demolish the existing buildings, and construct a new residential building on the site. This slide contains photos of the properties and existing detached dwellings at 277 and 279 Hazel Street. The existing buildings are 2 stories and contain 2 units at 277 Hazel and 1 unit at 279 Hazel. The proposal is to construct a 6-story multi-unit residential building with 40 dwelling units containing a mix of 1-bedroom and studio-style units. The building is proposed with a height of 20.3 meters. A total of 4 vehicle parking spaces are proposed, including 1 accessible space, along with 18 bicycle parking spaces. These are the renderings of the proposed development, which demonstrate the proposed building size. The first image is the view from Hazel Street, which shows the proposed front facade. The second rendering is from the rear of the site and shows the structured parking spaces with the first story of the building. This is the conceptual site plan provided with this application. The building in the middle of the site with the darkest orange color depicts the main level, and the lighter orange area is floors 2 through 6. The driveway along the north side of the property leads to 4 parking spaces behind the building and 2 in-ground waste bins. Landscaping will be provided in the rear yard and along the south side and front yards. The building does not include commercial floor area, but there may be opportunity to convert a portion of the ground floor in the future. The City of Waterloo's official plan designates this property as low-density residential, but being in the Northdale neighborhood, it is within specific provision area 45. This specific provision area increases the intensity of the low-density designation compared to other areas of the city. This designation within Northdale contemplates low to mid-rise residential buildings, up to a maximum of 6 stories in height, with a maximum density of 250 bedrooms per hectare. The proposed official plan amendment is to create a new specific provision area, which will allow for an increased density from the maximum 250 bedrooms per hectare to 381 bedrooms per hectare. This would equate to approximately 40 bedrooms on the site, whereas a maximum of 26 bedrooms is currently permitted. Additionally, the subject property is identified as a convertible frontage along a mixed-use street, which encourages designs that are easily converted into commercial space and taller ground floors to accommodate active uses for the street. From a zoning perspective, the property is zoned Holding Residential Northdale 6, HRN6. The holding symbol is standard in Northdale to ensure various matters are addressed prior to development, such as ensuring sufficient water capacity and transportation movements. The zone permits multi-unit residential buildings along with other housing forms like mixed-use buildings and townhouses. The zone also allows for various commercial uses within a mixed-use building. It allows a maximum height of 6 stories or 21.5 meters, and the maximum density is the same as the official plan at 250 bedrooms per hectare. The applicant is proposing to keep the RN6 zone, but through the proposed zoning amendment, they are requesting to increase the density to 381 bedrooms per hectare through a site-specific provision. The applicant is also proposing other site-specific amendments, including a reduction to the minimum first-story height from 4 meters to 3.7 meters, a reduced rear yard setback from 7.5 meters to 6.3 meters, and a reduced rear yard setback on the south side of the site from 3 meters to 2 meters. The applicants are also proposing to lift the holding provision within this application. As we review the application, other amendments may be identified, such as a reduction to the landscaped open space. The applicant has provided, along with the architectural plans and renderings, a number of studies and reports that are listed on screen. These are all available on the city's Engage page and are being reviewed by staff. As far as process, the materials are currently being reviewed by various agencies and city departments. I will be considering all comments, including those provided by the public, as I prepare a staff report and final recommendation. A formal public meeting will be held in the coming months for a final decision for the application. Okay, and this concludes my overview. I am happy to answer any questions from council.
Thank you very much for the presentation, Ashlyn. So council, if there's questions for staff, please remember that this is an informal public meeting and only questions of clarification may be asked. Council members should not express opinions at this point. So council looking for questions, Councillor Wright.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. I'm just wondering, when we are asked to permit extra density, do we also consider the need to increase our parkland?
Through the chair to you, Councillor Wright, that would be something that would be considered by our Parks Department, and we can take that back and assess. And I will defer to my senior planner, John, if he has any other input on that matter.
Over to you, John.
It's through Mayor McCabe to Council, right? It's not a direct correlation that we do a different calculation or anything else. But generally we look at what sort of amenities are being provided on site. And when it does come for development, there is a calculation for parkland dedication, and that gets adjusted accordingly at that time. So there's the financial contribution is what it would be for this development. We wouldn't be proposing actual parkland on this site, but there is a process to acquire additional parkland accordingly. Based on whether parkland has been collected previously or not, and it's a broader process. So it is something we think about. We are aware there's a demand for parkland in Northdale. 2 new parks have recently opened, and this one's really close to one of those 2 parks.
Thank you for that. Just as a follow-up to that, I'm just thinking about the combined aspect of permitting increased density plus reducing setbacks on the site and the impacts on the ability to, come up to our city standard on landscaping. So just mindful of that, especially the planners included in their report a table that had, this is on their planning justification document, they had a table of all the different developments where density had been approved, increased density had been approved. And I just found that really interesting and thought-provoking in this context that we might just need to really keep our eye on that. Thanks.
Thank you. That was a comment more than a question, I take it? Okay, thanks, Councillor Wright. Councillor Rowe.
Thank you, through you, Chair. I do have a couple of questions. Thanks so much for your presentation. I just wanted to add my question to the landscape space. So, and I did speak to John about this, so I apologize I didn't email this to you directly, but I'm wondering, I'm looking at the landscape space and that there are trees in that area. So is that actually usable space? Like, is there going to be an ability to move around the space, or is it just visual?
Yes, through you, Chair, to Councillor Rowe. The landscape space provided along the site would more be visual, as there is indoor amenity space provided. Yeah.
Thank you. So then that leads to my second question, which would be if there's any opportunity or if there have been any conversations with the applicant about rooftop space and having green space there.
Through the chair to Councillor Rowe, there have not been any conversations yet, but this is something that we will take back and discuss with the applicant. We will also likely need to involve other departments, including landscaping and possibly engineering.
Thank you. I have another question just about parking and taking into consideration, of course, that this is Northdale and it's an MTSA. There's 4 parking spaces, so I'm wondering if there's any concerns or if you've had any feedback from transportation about concerns about overflow parking, because certainly parking in Northdale is an ongoing issue.
And
Sorry, street parking.
yes, through the chair to Councillor Rowe, our transportation staff did review this application and did not have any concerns with the parking. Along Hazel Street, no parking is permitted along the one side of the street and restricted parking along the other. As the applicants have only proposed 4 parking spaces, the site is within a major transit station area, as we are well aware, and the applicants have provided the amount of parking that they seemed sufficient.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Rowe. Seeing no other questions from council, just a couple of quick ones from me. Is it possible to do underground parking at this site, or is the water table an issue there?
Through the chair to the mayor, that is something that the applicant has not addressed in this application, but I will defer to the applicant if they have explored any of those designs.
Okay, I can ask them. Thanks for that. And I may have missed it, but what's the actual square footage or square meters of the units? Was that included? Okay, I missed it, but could you just remind me?
Through the chair to the mayor, that is not a number I have off the top of my head, but I will get you that information at a later date.
Okay, I was just curious how big they actually are. And just on the setbacks, I guess similar to Councillor Wright and Councillor Rowe's questions / concerns, I'm trying to visualize it, but with those requested setbacks, does that basically mean there's like kind of little to no room for someone to actually just sit outside or like have a barbecue or have a small gathering outside?
Through the chair to the mayor, the setback reduction at the rear yard is 6.3 meters, whereas 7.5 is required. There is still sufficient space for landscaping along that, and that includes tree areas and grass where people could sit outside. There's also space in the front, I believe, for landscaping, but no outdoor amenity, as I mentioned before, has been proposed. So.
Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Seeing no other questions from council, I will ask any registered delegations to come forward, and we have Nicholas Dell from Harper Dell and Associates. Thank you, Ashlyn. And welcome, Nicholas. And you have 10 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you, my name is Nicholas Dell. I'm a planning consultant and the owner's representative. I inherited my grandfather's goodwill and my father's goodwill as a consultant, and I'm here today to help answer any additional questions you may have about the design. What you have before you is, as staff mentioned, and I want to thank Ashlyn for her good presentation, is an informal public meeting, and we're doing a rezoning official plan amendment to increase density for a number of units. They are quite large, the units, and this presentation I have is going to be quite brief. I think the majority of my time will be yielded to answer your questions. And what you'll see, oh, excuse me, I have the power here, don't I? What I've orchestrated on the 5 short slides for my delegation today is to speak mainly about the design of the building as it relates to the changes in legislation for major transit station areas. For those of you who know, who do or who do not know, Bill 185, as of August of last year, received its royal and ministerial approval that doesn't require municipalities to provide a minimum number of parking spaces anymore. We are in an area where density is being encouraged, both regionally and provincially and locally, and that's why we have so few parking spaces. I say so few because you think of the number of units and the number of parking provided, and it doesn't quite hit your eye properly, but it is something that's being encouraged, and as a measure of increasing affordability, this is something that I welcome, and I think planners are excited about the changes that the market will drive for people designing homes in these areas to try and keep cars off the road and try and provide more affordability to the units. Parking is expensive. One of the questions you had about underground parking, for what it's worth, each parking space in the first level of underground is approximately $60,000 to $80,000 to build. And that does transfer from a market perspective to the end users. And so affordability and parking are intimately related, and I believe that was the wisdom of this act. And so there are still concerns about this number of density without having the ability for people to drive there and park if they're coming to visit. That speaks to specifically to some of the courtesy discussions I've had with staff in lieu of the consolidated list of comments for this application. We're still waiting for a comprehensive comment report. When that comes out, we'll have a better discussion together about resubmissions and addressing those concerns. But what I've been given from a preliminary perspective is related to the delivery vehicles, fire and emergency, pickup and drop off on Hazel. It is, of course, something that we design before we get into density. Clients will come to me and say, I want this many units. And I'll say, before we get there, we need to talk about garbage, fire, landscaping, and parking. And then we can talk about density. And so the act, this recent piece of legislation, does help me remove parking from that design scenario. But when it comes to fire and emergency vehicles and delivery, we have designed something that complies with the building code, and it is sufficient. I think this is more a question of practice and human nature and how people will be ordering Uber Eats or having friends over. And I have to go back to the wisdom of the provincial planning, people in provincial planning, because we have to try and plan for the future we want, and it may be a little utopian to think about having less parking in cities that were set up mainly for driving and bedroom communities of Toronto, but I have to believe that this is the right decision and that culture will slowly change after legislation passes. And so we will make it work, and we are complying the best we can with, I think, what will help create more affordability, but this is a growing pain and a process of questioning practice, not theory. The theory, I think, is sound, but in practice, it's something that we have to try and comply for fire and safety, but we can't really control the way people park or the way people pick up and drop off Uber Eats. We do provide a surplus of bicycle parking, and we do have quite a lot of landscaping that allows for amenity space to be used. We're not capturing it as amenity space. It's just more green space. Park benches and where people would like to eat lunch and so forth, that is their prerogative, but we do have enough amenity space inside the building for people to enjoy it year-round. But there is quite a lot of landscaping in my professional opinion. I know we have a certain policy that we'd like to achieve on a case-by-case basis, but I, for one, am grateful that we have avenues for relief on site-specific rezonings like this, where we don't want to feel like we're the snowflake that's causing the avalanche of a parkland or a green space that isn't being provided. I think we are providing a reasonable amount for the type of tender and the number of units that we have, and this site is, I think, reasonable. So when you hear reductions to setbacks or green space, you tend to think that you should be going with the intent of that policy, but I do believe we are preserving the intent of that policy by virtue of the size of the units and the types of people that we design and expect to live here, and the amount of landscaping I think is appropriate in order to attract that level of density. So I think it's difficult to make everyone happy when it comes to parking, landscaping, heights, density, but I think density and parking are paramount, and if there are avenues for relief on the other aspects of what would be totally compliant, I think landscaping is a reasonable way to find a reduction. The first floor height is also something that's, from a code perspective, requires a couple extra risers, and it's quite more expensive to build. Just a few extra steps to get up 1 foot from the 3.7 we're proposing to 4 is quite expensive, and so I think it's reasonable of a reduction to ask for if that can come at the cost of affordability, similar to parking. Pedestrian connectivity and the bedroom unit variety is also something I've heard from staff. They're looking to see that people have enough room to maneuver around the building, even though we're having some reductions to landscape area and setbacks, and we feel that they do. The unit variety and the size of the units, going to your question from earlier, are quite large. This is the site plan that we mentioned. The maneuverability and pedestrian connectivity, I think, is exemplified in the number of bicycle parking spaces we have and the access to sidewalks on the street and enough room to get a lawnmower down the side yard where there is landscaping. And there's quite a broad amount of potential amenity area, but not amenity area we're capturing in the green space in the rear yard. And the number of units and the size of amenity space inside, as well as the almost 300 square feet of bicycle storage, I think is conducive to keeping this a really pedestrian and active lifestyle type of building. And then you asked a question about the size, and the units are quite large. I hope you'll agree with me when characterizing a minimum of 465 square feet is large for the smaller units, but also going up to the corner units being at 760 square feet. The number of bedrooms is how we calculate density, but there are room for more bedrooms to be placed. We would have to increase the request beyond the number of bedrooms per hectare, but we have heard the feedback from staff that they want more than just 1 bedrooms, and so 2 and 3 bedrooms for families and larger accommodations are something we're going to take away once we get a consolidated list of comments. We're happy to address those concerns. And the next steps for members of the public and members of council and staff are that we're going to be obtaining the consolidated list of comments from our first circulation after being deemed complete. We will then be responding, revising, and resubmitting, and moving forward to a formal meeting where we can get a decision from council. So I'm sorry, I wish I left more time for you to ask me questions, but that is the end of my presentation, subject to your questions of me, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much, Nicholas. No worries, we got all night here to ask questions. Just joking, we're not going to ask questions all night. Council, are there questions of the delegate? Councillor Handler.
Thank you. Through you, more just a comment, and you did answer the question that I had. I was a bit concerned that I was seeing just 1 bedroom and studio apartments, so I'm pleased to hear that once you get all the feedback, you are going to consider 2 and 3 bedroom units. Just given where the location of this particular facility, I think it would be helpful to have more than just 1 bedroom and 2 bedroom, or 1 bedroom and studio apartments. So thank you for taking that on.
Very good. I know there wasn't a question there, but if I may respond. No, through you, and thank you, but I think it's always helpful for my client to hear that you want more bedrooms. That'd be something we're willing to look at and resubmit.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Handmer. Other questions from council? Councillor Wright.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor, I noted that this is intended to be purpose-built rental. And so I'm just wondering whether knowing that students also have affordability challenges,
as do many young professionals who are looking for stable housing. Are there any affordability inclusions in this project?
So through you, thank you for the question. Through you, Madam Mayor. In terms of applying for certain grants, I know that those are things that will be available. The market is difficult to determine when we'll get a shovel in our hands, and I know grants are typically time sensitive. Once this moves to the building permit stage, I think it'll be easier to have that discussion. At the current stage right now, I don't have any instructions that I could offer you from my client to talk about making some like a portion of this affordable, for example. I think the entirety of it is meant to be affordable. And it's something that, like I said, we're very fortunate to be able to build because of the reductions we have to typical parking. So I think, generally speaking, this is meant to be purpose-built rental. I don't know that it conforms to the definition of affordability, but I do think it would, at the very least, be middle housing.
Thank you. Did you have a follow-up, Councillor? No. Okay. Any other questions from Council? I just had a couple I'm just curious also about the bedroom size, because like, is this primarily, given the location, is it safe to assume that it would be primarily students that would rent these? And so yes. I see you saying, nodding your head, yes.
I am, yes.
Yeah. And so have you considered, having more kind of dorm style, like where there's, 2 or 3 or 4 bedrooms per unit rather than all like so many singles? Because my understanding is, and I'm just quoting what I've heard from students themselves, but from people who operate student residents, that students tend to do better if they're in more kind of dorm styles, because they're it's more communal, they have friends there, etc. So is that a consideration?
It certainly is. I think the market dictates that style of housing. I think it would be difficult not to get inquiries from students on renting once this goes to market. The number of bedrooms is really subordinate to what we believe staff are willing to support, because we want this application to go through council in a positive way. So if there's a greater density we can take away from our comments and improve a dorm room style by adding more bedrooms without going past the threshold of what would be supported for the number of bedrooms per hectare, we're certainly open to that. And I agree with you, it's a lot easier to focus when you don't have a nice living room to sit on the couch and watch TV in.
Well, yeah, I don't know about that, but, and then my other question is, because there's space there, you said potentially that could be used for commercial space or amenity space. Like, what would make the decision, I mean, part of what I think is lacking in a lot of our neighborhoods are, like a neighborhood convenience store where someone could grab a bag of milk or, eggs or whatever, right? Like, so what would sort of tip the balance in terms of like putting in a commercial space versus more amenity space or another unit?
Thank you for the question. Through you, Madam Mayor. I think market influences user surveys and whether or not there's an appetite for it in terms of being approached. My client does intend to maintain ownership of this, so it's a long-term investment opportunity for them. Commercial tenancy is difficult in the current climate or in the current market we have. What would dictate that, I think, previously used to be parking, and we don't have that anymore. And I think also whether the amenity space, the minimums are being met under the zone. So there may need to be a change later. We felt, given the likelihood this would become student housing, that amenity was a rather important aspect of this design. Were we to sacrifice that at this stage at the risk of losing staff support is, I think, part of the delicate balance we're trying to strike. So there may be a change in the future once this is up and running and there's a market demand for it. And if we find that the tenants of the building aren't using that amenity space as much or don't enjoy it, we would hate to convert something that isn't year-round in terms of counting the amenity space outdoor in exchange for commercial use on the indoor. So it's delicate. I think there's some market concerns, but generally speaking, there is a speed to which we wish this approval will move forward. So amenity space would be I think the greatest factor of determining whether we do that now or if that's something that comes in later.
Okay, thank you very much for those comments. Seeing no other, no, asked and answered? Okay, seeing no other questions from council, looks like we're good for today.
Thank you.
I will now ask if any registered, if there is anyone else present tonight who wishes to speak to this application. Seeing none. Seeing none, and as there are no other questions from council and no more delegations, this informal public meeting is now concluded. Staff will review the issues and provide further reporting to council at a later date. Thanks again, Ashlyn and John, for your presentation. And thank you to the planning students for listening through this. Okay, so the next item on the agenda then is consideration of notice of motion given at a previous meeting. This is a notice of motion that I have tabled. Should I pass the chair over to Councillor, I'm trying to remember who was last in the chair. Councillor Hanmer? Acting Mayor, Councillor Roach, right, okay. Can I just, you can do it from your seat. Yeah, I'll just turn the chair over to you, Councillor Roach.
Okay. Thank you. Mayor, can you introduce the notice of motion, please?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Roach. So this motion was tabled last week, and it's for council's consideration regarding the provincial Ontario regulation 391/2 regarding changes to the blue box that the province is proposing. And so it's moved by me, and I would look for a seconder.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Hanmer.
Thank you, Councillor Hanmer. I think and so I'll just speak briefly. I think the motion's pretty self-explanatory. The blue box has been a ubiquitous part of the waste management scene certainly in Waterloo region. It started in Kitchener many, many years ago, but the province has continued to make a variety of changes, and with respect to, I think the end goal is positive. They're looking for the producers to take responsibility for the full accountability and financial responsibility for their packaging. However, there's a number of sources where recycling should be done and could be done that are now being deemed as ineligible, and those would be places of worship, municipally owned buildings, such as what we're in right now in our recreation facilities and community centers and other places, nonprofits, shelters, food banks, etc. So these regulations and legislation are to be launched in January 2026. So this motion is requesting the province to take another look at this and reconsider what they are currently considering ineligible sources. So that is basically it in a nutshell.
Are there any further comments by council?
Can I ask a question of clarification?
Yes, please. Go
Okay.
ahead, Councillor Wright.
This is just on the second whereas, where we talk about ineligible sources, public-facing and internal areas of municipal-owned buildings. Would that include something like the public square?
Yeah. My understanding is yes, it would.
Okay, thank you for that.
And parks as well. So,
Great, okay.
yeah.
Thank you. Any further comments? This motion introduced by Mayor McCabe and seconded by Councillor Hanmer. We have a show of hands. That is carried unanimously.
Thank you very much, Councillor Roach. And just as an FYI, I've also tabled this at the region of Waterloo because they actually have responsibility for the system, but wanted to show our local support as well. So moving on there to other notices of motion, there are none. There's no communications and correspondence. There's no unfinished business. Council, are there any questions of staff at this time? Seeing none, any new business from council? Oh, Councillor Wright.
Thanks. I have a very active hand today in today's meeting. I just wanted to note that we often talk about fire keeping when we're talking about First Nations presence in our community. And I just want to draw attention to the All Nations Grand River Water Walk, which just concluded. It took place from September 21st to 27th. And water keepers are stewards who promote the sacredness of water and also safeguard local waters. They play a really important role in our community, centering watershed issues. So just highlighting water keepers and the work that they have just done to raise attention to the Grand River over the last many days. It's a long walk that they engage in, and it's deeply spiritual work, and it's just something to be honored at this time of the year as well. It's an annual event, so something that I hope to actually join in on at some point in the future. And then the other item that I just wanted to speak to is regarding someone who's often in our council chambers here. For the past 2 years, William Martin has been initiating conversations between local First Nations groups and our local institutions. And the focus of these conversations has been to nudge us into deeper conversation, meaningful interactions, and the beginning of new relationships. So historically, local First Nations groups have been predominantly located in Kitchener with a very small footprint in Waterloo, and seeing no community events booked in the Waterloo Public Square to recognize the National Day of Truth and Reconciliation, William has planned his own event in partnership with some local First Nations groups and with the Waterloo Region Police Service. This event takes place tomorrow at 2 p.m. in case you are looking for opportunities to mark the National Day of Truth and Reconciliation. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Councillor Wright, for sharing that information. Councillor Rowe.
Thank you. I just wanted to raise for awareness that tomorrow, IRCC, Immigration, Refugee and Citizenship Canada, is halting a program to house refugees in hotels when they arrive in Canada. And I'm not here to comment on that decision, but I just wanted to raise the awareness of the impact on people that are coming to our country who are already traumatized and who need stability. So I urge you to look into that issue. If it speaks to you, to please speak to your MP, because this is such a critical landing place for refugees when they arrive. Housing is precarious, as we well know, for everyone, and this just puts another burden and barrier on newcomers when they arrive in our country. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Rowe. Seeing no other comments or questions, or new business, I should say, from council, I will look for someone to enact the bylaws. Moved by Councillor Freeman, seconded by Councillor Roach. All in favor? That is carried. And adjournment, moved by Councillor Freeman, seconded by Councillor Vasek. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much, everyone. And enjoy the rest of your afternoon.